Hello, good evening, Natalia. How are you? How do you feel today?
Hello, fine, thank you. I am
Great.
here with Echo.
Okay, I'm going to check. I'm going to fix that. Give me a second.
Mhm.
Okay, we should be good now to go in. Natalia, we're going to start the class. Again, we have some things to check. I believe that's the first thing we're going to do. Are there some exercises and something that you want to show me to check? We can begin with that, please.
I put the 3 examples in the Google documents with nobody, anything, and someone.
All right, so we're going to check those first. Okay, I'm going there.
Here.
So there you go. Well, let's read please what you got in Natalia.
I am relieved because nobody to defend this cause. I think it would be better to bring anything to it. Is there someone to want to participate on this meeting?
Okay, thank you very much, Natalia. Now, in general, I believe the first example, something is missing over there. We're going to check what, all right? Why? Because if you want to use a verb after nobody, we need some details, but we have other details to check as well, all right? Now, let's first number 2 and number 3, all right? Because in number 1, it's going to be the most important. In number 2, number 3, only details. In number 2, only a recommendation. If you want to be very formal, you're going to use that over there, but it's not necessary. Okay, so it is good. I think that it would be better to bring anything to it. But here, only one correction that is not that significant. But you have to tell me actually the meaning of your sentence here. If you say anything, all right, you are saying like it doesn't matter what, all right, but we have to bring anything to it. But you can say something. When you use something in affirmative sentences, you say that you can bring something that is not specific, but is something, right? So the big difference between something and anything is that anything is mainly used in questions and in negative sentences, right? In questions and in negative sentences, anything. And also anything, because that was not part of the lesson, but we learned that before. And also anything is used when you want to say, it doesn't matter what, I don't care, all right? I don't care what, but we need to bring anything that you find over there, all right? But if your meaning, if what you want to say is not as radical as that, Natalia, and you only want to say, it would be better to bring something to it, I mean, in a general way, without that radical position, then something is better, okay? Something is always better for affirmative sentences. Anything is only going to be used in an affirmative sentences if you want to be very radical, when you don't care what. Okay, so what do you say? Would it be better for your sentence to use anything or something in that case? That's up to you, actually. All right. All right, there you go. And again, this is correct, but the meaning is a little bit more radical. All right. Now, is there someone? Now here, I was not paying attention to this one. So also here, when we want to use this, all right, these words, remember, these are called indefinite nouns or indefinite pronouns. All right. When we use indefinite pronouns as the subject here, actually you want to use this as the subject, we are not going to use directly another infinitive. Why? Because here, is there someone to want to participate? No, the idea over there is not going to be this, because I'm going to try to give the idea in the chat very briefly. This is the correct idea. First, I'm going to write it down below actually before I write it in the chat. Is there someone, all right, who wants to participate, all right, in this meeting. And why? Because actually here you are identifying this someone. Okay, is there someone who or that wants to participate in this meeting? All right, that's a clause that complements over there. Now, to, when you use infinitive, is just to complement, but when this someone is actually part already of your object and is only your object, not your main subject. Here, someone is your subject. All right, here you're using someone as your main subject. And it can be used only when you say, I'm trying to give the translation because it's kind of something that we don't have in Spanish, all right? But you can give me something similar like this, and then you're going to tell me if you see the difference between these two. So if there's someone who wants to participate, all right, in this meeting, now, it's going to be a different question, all right? All right, it's going to be even, there is someone, and I'm going to use someone, not, and I'm not going to use the verb after someone as a complement for that someone. It is going to be related to something that I want to do with that person. Okay, something that I want to do with that someone, but not something that that someone is going to do as an action. So we're going to see the difference. This is going to be for the difference. Okay, so there is someone to have an interesting, there. All right. So here, this to have an interesting conversation with, it's something I want to do with that someone. Okay, it's not part of that person's desire. It's not an action that that person is doing. It's not an action that that person is expressing. All right, it's something that I want to do with that someone. But it's different if I say there is someone, all right, who, all right, can have very interesting conversations with you, for example. All right. Now it is very similar, but here I'm putting emphasis, all right, in that person's ability to have a conversation with you. All right. Or even I can say there is someone who always has interesting conversations. All right. Not with you, but just in general. All right. So again, if we analyze the difference, it can be sometimes hard to tell, but one more time. In this first case, this to have an interesting conversation with, it's something that I'm saying about that person, and it's something that I believe about that person, all right? But in number two, in number six, in this case, someone who always has interesting conversations, I'm describing that person and his or her abilities for something. And it happens the same in number one. When you say I'm relief is going to be a noun, okay? We need to use the verb. The verb is going to be with the, relief, but this is used as an adjective in the past participle, so I'm relieved, okay? But let's go to the point. I'm relieved because nobody to defend this cause, right? You can add something similar to this, because if you say only that, you are saying right, that's what you're telling. Actually, let me, that's just the part of the of that because. Okay, if you say because nobody to defend this cause, You are telling me that, okay, it's in the chat. So we need to complement that's incomplete. It is possible to use to defend this cause. That's your opinion on that nobody, on that non-existence, but you always use a complete idea after because. Nobody to defend, this is only a phrase. All right, you need because there is nobody to defend this cause. All right, this is going to add what you need, a subject and a verb, because here again nobody is working directly as an object, and this to defend this cause is something that you attribute to that person or to that thing. All right, and now the translation would be because. All right. Something like this. All right, and that there is adding something that we really need always after a after because. All right, it's going to be a complete idea. In general, I believe that's going to be, again, this can be complex and we can be here a lot of time. It's going to be practicing and practicing, but let me know please the specific questions that you got before we can go to the next part, Natalia.
In the sentence number 5 or number 4, is there someone who wants to participate? If I put more simply, if there is someone to participate, is there someone to participate in this meeting? Is the same sense, or I am changing the sense?
Is there someone to participate? It's going to be kind of the same because you're asking for a specific action that describes that someone. But if you describe that someone, we don't need to use infinitive, because you're describing someone like what, someone who has what characteristics, and then you need to use to give characteristics the adjective clause that we learned, right? We have which, who, whom, any of those. As someone is a person, we have to use who, but informally we also can use that. All right, but again, it's because it is a direct description of that someone, because it's again, it's a characteristic that that person has. But if you attribute something indirectly to that person, and that person is not the subject, because here again in this question, is there someone, is going to be kind of the main subject. Even though we have is there, this is going to be the main person we're talking about. All right, so as long as we have this, it is going to be better to use an adjective clause like this instead of an infinitive. All right, but you can again give indirect attributions like this one. There is someone to have an interesting conversation with over there. Here, you're not given a direct description for what this person wants or if this person participates. It's not a direct action, but you are giving like a comment on that person. All right, but it's not a direct description for that person. It is something that you only comment over that. Okay, so let's say that this is something that you believe about that person, right? There is someone to have an interesting conversation with over there. All right, but again, it's not directly related to this someone. It is your addition to what you think of that person. All right, so again, that can be sometimes confusing, but um, also the translation can help a lot actually here, Natalia. Just to help with those last details, in the chat, if you ask that one, you're asking me this.
So the task is write sentences using nobody, someone, but no as a describing of the person.
Yes, it's not exactly, it's not a description. If you analyze, you are even looking, it's kind of an objective or a purpose why you mentioned that. Okay, if you analyze the translation, I gave you the translation in the chat. That's what you're telling me. And as you can read, that's incorrect, right? That's incorrect. Also, if you say, right, if you were telling me, right, if you want to say to participate, it can be close to be correct. But again, if you analyze in that situation, we are not going to use to want, all right, because it's not the purpose that you want to know over there. It's just a description for the type of person that wants to participate in the meeting. All right, but that's more or less the idea. So yes, if it's a description, who or that, right? I know someone who plays soccer very well, right? But you can also say sometimes, I know someone to play soccer with us, and that's different, right? And actually also that's going to be very illustrating, right? You can say one more time, I know someone, all right, who plays, sorry, who plays soccer very well, right? But you can also say, I know, right, someone to, all right, to play soccer with us, all right, now perhaps again this is not going to be the best example, but it is something close to what we can do, right? Here you're describing the person, but here you're describing, right, what's the purpose of mentioning this person. All right, it's like I'm saying someone because this is the purpose, this is what the person can do with us, but I'm not giving a description about that person. I'm saying that possibly that person is going to be able to play soccer with us right now if we ask him or if we ask her. All right, but more or less the difference goes over there. Who, remember again, and I'm going to just keep the last elements and descriptions over there, just the first part.
No is the last sentence. I know someone to play soccer with us right now. No is the same when I say, is there someone to participate in this meeting?
It's close to that one. Exactly. That's why I said what you were saying over there, it is possible, but it's not the best option. Also, this example that I'm telling you, as I told you before, is not the best option. It is possible, but it's not the best option. All right, but it is possible with that one. To want is going to be incorrect. To participate is going to be valid, but it's not going to be again the best option over there. All right, it is better to have it as the object, but it is valid. If you say to participate is valid, but as my example in number 8 is not the best way perhaps in which we can use this element. All right, but the logic goes more or less over there. And again, what I'm trying to do is just to at least let the difference be clear, right? When we say who and that or to. But again, the context is going to do everything. The context is going to tell you or to make you see if that sentence is correct, if it makes sense, or if it is better to give a description, or if it is a comment that you're giving on that person. All right, but more or less with that, I believe that it can help a little bit more to understand those ideas. I don't know if you have questions about this, then Natalia. Mainly here, because here the correction was because we need a complete idea after because, right? Then over here it was good. This was just an option, right? I think that it can make it more formal. And in this case, because this to want is not really directly related to the description of someone, it is better to say who to describe what this person wants. But we have alternatives as this one, or even as the one that you were mentioning over here, that can be valid. And then we can make this correction over here in case you are giving again the purpose, right? Is there someone? Why? Because this someone can participate in this meeting. If you change the idea to the desire of that person, to what you need from that person, then it is also going to work. all right, as you mentioned, right, to participate. So yes, if the meaning of the sentence changes, it can be valid as in this last one, Natalia. But more or less, that's the logic of using these infinitives after these indefinite pronouns. So you let me know, please, if you have any other questions.
So I write again more examples, but I have what is the guy, the last options, 7 and 8
Yeah, I mean,
sentences.
all of them are correct. This is correct. Right now, with this correction, this is also correct. I'm relieved because there is nobody to defend this cause, right? Perhaps also, of course, the context has to be checked, but that's correct. Also here, this is also correct. I think that it would be better to bring something to eat. And actually here, this is not the infinitive. We have two infinitives, but this is the infinitive, right? Something to eat. Like, this is the purpose of bringing something, right? Something to eat. This is also correct. So if you follow this, and even this, you can follow this idea. So follow these three ideas that you have. They are correct now. You can follow number 5. That's also correct. And you can follow this last one, right? That is close to your to participate. That is good, right? But again, usually you're going to have these elements like at the end, like this one, right? I need something to eat. I need somewhere to go, for example, right? Somewhere is also something. We don't have a somewhere in the list, but somewhere is another indefinite pronoun that is for place, right? Or you can say I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anything to drink, right? I had a friend, but now I don't have anyone to trust in, right? So usually that idea is going to be at the end because it's going to be give the complement in the sense of purpose. You need someone why, right? I need someone to tell him or to tell her all my secrets, right? You need something why. I need something to eat, all right, because I am hungry, of course, and I have to eat. It's not a direct response to why, okay? It's not a direct response to why, but in a certain way, you are talking about purpose with that, okay? So if you follow that logic, and again, now all these elements are corrected, you can follow any of these elements, of course, not the ones with the adjective clause, but all of them are going to work. And also you can follow the examples that I'm giving you now.
Okay.
All right. All right. So good. I don't know if you have other details that you want to show me, if you were able to work on something related to your paragraph or not yet. Let me know, please.
No, not yet. I didn't have time for the paragraph.
Yes, no problem. It's a lot to work on over there. So little by little, then we're going to take advantage and we're going to work with our lesson. All right. This is a review of something that we covered before, the past perfect. First of all, and as always, Natalia, I want to know if you remember anything about the past perfect, anything that comes to your mind.
I have to use the verb have in past, have, and the verb in past participle. For right sentences.
That is correct. Good. What about the usage? When do we use the past perfect? What's the purpose of using the past perfect?
When I talk about the action that happened before the past simple.
Right? Yes, we are good. It can be the simple past or the past simple past, but also it can be just an action in the past, right? So any action in the past, this is always going to be the first action, right? So yes, it is an action that always happened before another action in the past. That can be the simple past in most of the cases, that's correct, but it can also be just a time expression, right? If we say, for example, by 1990, it means before 1990, right? I had already finished or I had already traveled to the US, you can say, right?
Mhm.
So traveling to the US happened before 1990, right? And in 1990 is not exactly the simple past, it is just a time expression in the past. But you're right. So time expression in the past and simple past, those are the time references for past, and we use the past perfect to explain what happened before those time references, right?
Mhm.
That's great. Here we have the example, right? And this is the main difference between the simple past and the past perfect. So let's read these examples, please, that I believe we read before, but let's read them again as this new unit, and let's
Mhm.
analyze the differences, please.
Mhm. In June, she traveled to the US. By June, she had traveled to the US.
Exactly. So what do you say about these two ideas? You can reinforce what you said, you can compare them.
Okay, in the first, when I said in June she traveled to the US, I am talk about the action in the past, but it's happening someday in June, but I don't know when. And in the second, when I said by June she had traveled to the US, is the action was happening in the past before June, not in June, like in the first example.
Exactly. You can say just by saying that, but actually this is more precise than this one, right? Also, this is
Mm,
precise, but this is
mhm,
very precise because you said, right, we don't know when exactly, that's correct, but actually we know that it was in June, right? We
mhm,
know it was not in May, it was not in
mhm,
September, right? We know when, we know that it was in June. Even we can change this to a specific date, right? We can say on June the 28th, right?
mhm,
On June the 28th, comma, she traveled to the US, and that's correct. But we cannot say on June the 28th she had traveled to the US, right? That wouldn't be correct. But we can say by, right? By means before, right? And we can say perhaps before June the 28th, she had traveled to the US, right? That is before. So we also know when, but not exactly because it can be any time in the past, any time before June the 28th, or any time before June, right? Very likely it's going to be close to June, very likely, but we don't have that specific information, right? Also, when we say by 1990, I had already traveled to the US, right? It can be in 1989, it can be in 1988, right? It can be in 1970, right? So
mhm,
we don't know exactly when, but we have at least one time reference, right? That is before that year, before 1990, right? So yes, what you explained is good. I'm just showing that in a very general way, the simple past is always going to be more specific. That's why we call it the definite and a specific time, the simple past. But the past perfect is definite, but not as definite as the simple past. And the only definition that we got about it, the only specification, is that it happened before a specific date, but we don't know exactly when. All right, but we have
mhm,
that reference. At least we have the reference that it was before a specific date. But again, it can be very broad in the past. All right. So
mhm,
let's go to this. We have the definition now, actually, is what you said. That is correct. The formula also is what you said, Natalia. It's just that in past is going to be had not, and in questions always inversion, right? We know. But I would like to go directly to something that we need to practice with, right? That these four uh, expressions, time expressions to use the past perfect, right? So let's read this, please, and then you let me know if you have any questions before practicing in our document, please.
mhm. By simple past, by the time someone did or something happened. Plus perfect, past perfect. By 1990, past perfect. By the middle of the year, past perfect. When, simple past. When someone did something, past perfect. When something happened, past perfect. Before, simple past. Before someone did something, past perfect. And before something happened, past perfect. After, past participle. After someone have done something, past simple. After something have happened, past simple.
All right, thank you very much. Now, here we have a mistake over here because, well, it's not a mistake, but I don't know why we don't have the comma, right? Anytime that this is at the beginning, we know that we need a comma over there, right? Also here and also here, right? Always with a comma. Here we have the commas, yes, yes, and yes. All right, so this is the logic in the Natalia. The meaning of the four ideas is exactly the same, only after is special, right? Remember that. We covered this with you, but we need to understand this is a new toolbar. All right, I don't know what happened. Let me check. All right, so where's the thing now that I always use? That's the spotlight. Okay, this is kind of new. I'm exploring. Okay, there you go. These four elements are the same. All right. By is the reference, the main reference for the past perfect, because it means before. It means at the same time, it means before or close to something, right? Because you can say, for example, in location, I'm by the school. And if you say I'm by the school, it means you're close to the school. You are not in the school, but you're close to that school, right? Before is the other one that is the best option. Okay, by and before, those are the best options to use simple past, past perfect, right? So by the time you arrived home, comma, I had already finished my homework, right? So first, I finished my homework, then you arrived home. Or the same, before you arrived home, comma, I had already finished my homework. Same logic. First, always the past perfect, right? It doesn't matter if it's at the beginning or in the second place. The first action is always the past perfect in logic, right? And after has the same logic. Natalia, you know that. The only difference is that after the word after, we place the past perfect, right? After before is the simple past. After by the time is the simple past. But after the word after, we use past perfect, right? So with the same example, it would be after I had already finished my homework, comma, you arrived. Okay, so it's the only one that it has to be followed by a different tense. All right, not the simple past, but by the past perfect. All right, so I really want you to practice with these three mainly because we know when. And when is an alternative, but it's not the best option. But it works in the same way, Natalia. The meaning of when in this case is not going to be exactly at one point of the time. It's also going to mean before. But again, it's more informal than by and than before or after because they are more precise in those terms. All right, so I don't know if you have any questions so that we can write examples with those three elements, Natalia. Let me know, please.
When you use by or before, you have to start with the past simple and then you add the past perfect.
Yes, if we follow this specific order, yes. But remember that you can work with inversion. But the main thing that we need to understand here is that the simple past is always going to be after the word by the time. But remember that by the time can be at the beginning of the sentence or it can be in the middle, right? So we can say, for example, by the time, the same example, right? But I'm going to say it differently. You arrived by the time I had already finished my homework. That's also correct, right? But by the time is always going to be next and before what? The simple past. The same with before, right? Where you can say the same idea. You arrived before, sorry, it would be I had already finished my homework before you arrived. Okay, so you can play with the places, and actually that's going to be part of what I'm going to ask you right now, Natalia. We're only going to write 3 examples, but these 3 examples are going to be in the order that you see here, right? By the time, simple past, comma, past perfect, but also in the logical inversion. Remember that these are subordinating conjunctions. These are complex sentences. And the characteristic of complex sentences, if you remember the formulas that I gave you, is that you can invert the order, right? Always. Okay, so the same sentence is going to be by the time, simple past, comma, past perfect, and the same exact sentence is going to be past perfect by the time, simple past with no commas, right? Because we know that when these words are in the middle, we don't use commas, right? The same over here. Another sentence before simple past, comma, past perfect, and the same sentence with inversion, past perfect before simple past with no commas, right? And the same applies to after. So you're always going to respect what you have over here, the formula, and this formula over here, but you can invert the places. You can start with the past perfect, and then you change before plus the simple past after those. All right, you always have that chance when you see these words, Natalia, by the time, when, before, after, because, since, as, and those are again subordinating conjunctions, and they give you that opportunity of working with inversions every time. All right, I don't know if you have questions about that. Let me know, please.
Mm, in both cases, the first action is in the past perfect, right? And then the next action is when you put before, and then the complement. This is the second action.
Yes, I mean, if you write anytime, it doesn't matter if it's at the beginning or at the end, the past perfect is always going to be the first idea in the past. In the past, right? Not writing, but logically speaking, in terms of grammar, it is always going to be the first action. And again, I'm just going to give that one sentence just in the document as you're also going over there, just that I'm getting used to this. All right, so I'm going there, right? It's the example that I gave you. I'm going to write the possibilities and with the 3 cases, because it is going to be just like copying and pasting again. Most of the ideas that we have are like that. Okay, so I'm adding a new column, and the idea would be, remember, right? By the time you arrived, always simple past after that expression. I had already finished my homework, right? And as you were saying, always going to be the first idea in the past, right? Always. It is in the second place, but it's always the first idea. Now, what is the inversion of this one? Again, to work on the inversion, you don't have to do anything but copy, paste, and you play with those elements. You don't have to change absolutely anything, right? You just copy that one. The only thing that you're going to change, of course, are the punctuation. Here, we don't need anything, and that's it, right? And here, of course, instead of comma, that one, and we have that, and it's exactly the same, but it's inversion, all right? That's everything we need. And you can do exactly the same. Of course, you need 3 different examples, Talia, but it happens the same. We only have one little detail, right? That is after, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So here we can say, before you arrived, I have already finished my homework, or I have already finished my homework before you arrived. And here, this is the main difference, right? What's the main difference here? That when we have after, right, we have after followed by the past perfect, and then we use the simple past, right? So after I had already finished my homework, you arrived, and the change over here, would it be what? The same idea, You are right. All right, and we're just playing with the places and this idea over here. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to have this also as a reference, but this shows again that all those expressions can be inverted. The only thing that is changing is, again, the place in your sentence, but the meaning is exactly the same in all these sentences. All right, so with all of that, please, let's do the same. Not only one example, right? In your case, you need 3 examples, and each example is going to have its own inversion. All right, so which check when you finish, please.
Okay.
right? All right, so when you're ready, you can read your examples, Dalia, and we check how they are.
Okay, I am here with the again.
Yes, I'm going to check.
Mhm.
All right, it should be good now.
Mhm.
All right, so let's read, please.
Okay. By the time I finished my homework, I had received a call. I received a call by the time I finished my homework. I I forgot I had received a call.
Okay, there you go.
The second is before I arrived to the place, my car had broken. My car had broken before I arrived to the place. And next, after they had came here, they bought some for dinner. They bought some for dinner after they had came here.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. In general, it's great, just minor details, but not in the structure, because the structure is perfect. How you're using the present perfect and the past perfect is perfect. Okay, I have no observations of that. It is very good. Just details in terms of one conjugation and the preposition that you have over there, right? Remember that with arrive, you never say arrive to, right? We say that in Spanish. I arrived to a place, but in English, no. In English, you arrive in a place, you arrive on a place, or you arrive at a place. Okay, but never to, never to. So here we can change to one of those elements. We can say I arrived at a place or at the place if it's very specific. But again, if you want to say that you arrived to a city, we don't say to a city, right? We say I arrived in Lima, all right, in Lima 2 days ago, right? But in, we never say to. And also you can say on if it's going to be on a specific surface, all right? But in most of the cases, it's going to be at or in. That's it, again, and that's something not related, it's something extra. But we're going to mark it so that we don't forget. And in the last place, remember, what's the conjugation in the three forms of the verb come? If you remember, it's going to be come, came, come, right? So actually, come is the past participle. Came is only the simple past. But here we need to use the past participle, and the past participle is come, right? So the base form and the past participle are the same with come, right? It happens with become also, right? The three conjugations of become are become, became, become, right? Also with run, right? Run, ran, run, right? And actually, but no, the pronunciation changes there, and also it changes the writing. That's different. But in those two cases, it is the same, right? Come, came, come, become, became, become. But that's it. That's my only there. Ah, yes, and something else. It's not marked over here, but if you say after they had come here, they bought some. If you only need write some, you do it for two reasons. All right. Exactly. Something if you don't mention the object, but if you use some, you need an object. Okay. For example, you can say some food for dinner. All right. Or if you already mentioned the food before, okay, you can say I have a lot of food here, and you say, but what am I going to do? I already bought some for dinner. So we already mentioned food. So if you already mentioned food, you can also have the option of not mentioning anything over there. Okay, but as we didn't mention food or anything, we're just going to say something, right? They bought something for dinner, right? Or even you can apply what we were doing, right? You can say they bought something to eat, you can say, right? But it's also correct. Great. That's it. Again, the way you're using the past perfect is very good, Natalia. I have no observations on that. It is just these three minor mistakes, right? The preposition, come, and this one. That's it. I don't know if you have any questions about that, or other details before we can go to a short conclusion and a short introduction for the next topic? Let me know, please.
No, I only have to memorize the use of the tenses in each part of the sentences.
Exactly. And at the beginning, it can be right a lot, and sometimes it can be tricky. But once you have it over there, it's going to be natural, and it's only going to be you writing that. All right. But again, in order to get there, we need to practice, right, as much as we can. But let's go to the short conclusion, because actually that's the main topic. We don't need to know anything else but that, Natalia. It means that the short conclusion is going to be just showing you these expressions. Remember, these common emphasizers: already for affirmative, yet for negative, and negative for, never for affirmative sentences with a negative meaning, right? And I believe that we have some examples here. Yes, we are using never, we are using already, and we are using yet. Okay, so let's read all these examples, please.
By 2010, I had already graduated from school. When you arrived, the show had finished. Before she mentioned it, we hadn't realized that it was there yet. After they studied for months, the professor canceled the test. By the time you entered the classroom, the practice had already begun. Before it happened, I had never thought of that idea.
All right, there you go, right? So already in affirmative sentences to say that it was even before than you thought, right? It was with a lot of anticipation and it was unexpected, right? I had already graduated from school, right? Yet for negative sentences, right? We hadn't realized that it was there yet. Not yet, but afterwards we will realize, right? And with never, this is affirmative sentence, but the idea is negative, right? Before it happened, I had never thought of that idea. So it is affirmative, but with a negative meaning because of never, right? And that's it. We're just going to have that as the conclusion, and we have again the presentation or the introduction for another one. But I'm going to ask you these questions. How can you briefly respond to this, Natalia? What had you done by the time you were, I don't see, the 15 years old?
I had uh, I have to use the past perfect.
Exactly, that's correct. To give a correct response, it has to be in the past perfect.
I had lived in other city in Peru.
Okay.
When I have when I am 15 years old.
Oh, or remember, right? If you say when it's correct, but it's better if you say by the time I was, right? By the time I was 15 years old, right? Because remember, the age is always with the verb to be. You can say when I was also, okay? When I was 15 years old, but it's better again. Remember, the better options are by the time and before, right? But it's good. And remember, if you say other, it would be another, right? In another city. So I had lived in another city in Peru by the time I was 15 years old. It means before you were 15 years old, you had already lived, right, in another city. Okay, good. What about where had you traveled by 2015?
I had traveled to Mexico by the time I I am no by the time I have to start the sentence by 2015.
Yes, and actually, you can finish with that also. And your response is good. You can say, I had traveled to Mexico by 2015. That's it, right? Because that's the question. What had you done before it was 2015? That's what you're saying, right? And you say, before it was 2015, I had already traveled to Mexico, or I had traveled to Mexico, right? But if you had by 2015, that's your phrase. And that by 2015 can be at the end, or it can be at the beginning with a comma, right? That's the only thing. So good. So your response would be, give me one more time your complete response with by 2015, please.
By 2015, I had traveled to Mexico.
Exactly, right? That's what you did before it was 2015. Great. And the same logic in the last one. And this is just a yes, no question. Had you graduated from school or university before the pandemic began?
Yes, I had.
Exactly. The short response would be that, and just that. Yes, I had. But you can clarify, right? You can say, yes, I had, period, and a new sentence, right? I had graduated, and you clarify, right? From university before the pandemic began, right? That's just to clarify the question, right? But that's it. I don't know if you have any questions about this lesson before finishing with that.
No.
All right, so good, but you see the purpose, right? These questions should be useful to understand the purpose of the past perfect, right? It's to know what was the past event before another past event, right? In that situation, we always use the past perfect, all right? Now, the short introduction, as always, you have some extra links to check, all right, to see if they should be working still, but you're going to let me know if they are not, to look for new ones. But the short introduction for this one is going to be just, let me check. Okay, this future in the past. Okay, so just as a matter of introduction, and Natalia, we already covered this in previous courses, in previous lessons. And future in the past, of course, is when you had plans for the future in the past, but in most of the cases, something happened and it was not possible, right? For example, here we have these examples. I was going to study law, but my parents took me out of it. Or I thought I would move to Paris. It never happened though, right? So those were my plans, right, for the past. They were plans for the future that I had in the past, but they never took place, right? So what do you say? What plan for the future did you have, Natalia? What were you going to do when you were younger? But what happened? Why didn't you do it?
I was going to continue traveling, but the pandemic started.
Good. Started, right? Great. That's a great idea. Perfect. So you were going to continue traveling, right? But because of the pandemic, it was not possible for you to do it, right? The pandemic started or began, and you couldn't do it anymore. Okay, that's it. This is the lesson we're going to be reinforcing once again. Be going through in the past, plus a contrast, or I thought, I knew, I hoped, plus I would, and the base form, right? And contrast also, right? You can use your idea in this same logic. You can say, I thought I would continue traveling around the world or traveling. It never happened though. Or you can say semicolon, however, comma, it never happened. Or semicolon, however, comma, the pandemic began, right? Any contrast, anything that didn't let you do what you wanted to do is going to be in the second part as contrasts, right? With but, with however, or with this word that is though. And this is the same as but, this is the same as however. This is used for contrast, but it's used at the end, right? So we're going to practice all of that. But that's just introduction to finish today. I don't know if you have questions, and if you remember something about this or any comments, Natalia, let me know, please.
And no, I think the second example is it has a specific structure, but for me it's more
Yes,
simple the first.
exactly. It's simpler or more simple. That's correct. This is
Mhm,
what we are usually going to use, but this is an alternative that you have. And it's good
mhm,
that you know it, right? It's good that you know that it can be used there, because sometimes you're going to read this in articles or in narrations, and it's important that we understand that the meaning is the same as we go into in past.
mhm.
Okay, but yes,
Okay.
yes, you're right. Also, I usually 90% of the time I use this one and not this one, right? Because it's more
Mhm,
natural. All right, so
mhm.
good. That's going to be it then, Natalie. Today was the seventh class. We only have one more class before we finish A11, and then we're going to start our last course together on Monday. Okay, so don't forget, I'm mentioning that because remember that we have to be finishing everything on Pearson, right? The assignments,
Uh,
the quizzes, the final tests. Why? Because again, on Monday, we should start everything.
I have to finish for Monday.
If I'm not wrong, on Monday we start the new course. If I'm not wrong, you have until Sunday to finish everything.
Okay.
Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Just checking the platform. All right, it should be Sunday. If it's less, you're going to let me know to add more. But if I'm not wrong, I assign it until Sunday, and perhaps even I gave you until Monday. But I remember that it was Sunday. All right, but it should be the last one so that on Monday we can start directly the new course.
Mhm.
All right,
For 15, we
15.
think.
It
Yes.
should be, yes, it's the 15, correct. Okay, take a look at that. Again, if you find that, where's the poll now? Okay, over here. If you find that you need more time, you're going to let me know, but I think that by Sunday, 11:59 p.m., it should be good. But anyway, you are going to let me know, please, Natalia.
Yes.
All right,
I'll
so you
let you
have the
know.
poll over there. Yes, that's correct. We're still on Wednesday, so we still have the time to
Yes,
finish
15.
the assignments.
Mhm.
There you go. That's it. Have a good night then, Natalia. I'll see you on a Friday then.
Friday. Yes. Thank you. Good
Good.
night.
Bye bye. Good night.
Bye.